Okay, welcome to the next lesson. In this lesson we're going to be looking at the tow bar here itself, and we're going to be using these dimensions here to reproduce it as you see it. Now when you first look at this, probably the most important thing is to work out an efficient plan of attack, and in this case I would suggest that by drawing this profile here on a plane or a work plane, after that has been drawn, we could then extrude it back to its depth of 75 to give us almost 99% of the shape. The last thing we need to do is to put this round on the front and a couple of holes through it. Now these dimensions here give us lots of information about the overall shape of the tow bar, but they don't give us everything. So what we do is we start with what we know. So I'm going to start off by drawing this profile here on the side of the tow bar in Creo, and I'm first going to start off with, I know that from this corner here without the round on it, so there's a square corner there, to this square corner here is a distance of 110. So over to Creo, usual thing, you need to set your working directory and then create a new part. So this part for me is going to be called the tow bar. It's mixed with the tow ball, and turn our planes on, and once again I'm going to draw it on a lateral or frontal plane and sketch. Okay, start off with the known information. So line tool, draw myself a line that is 110 millimeters in length. Set that up first of all. Good practice always to draw what you know first up. That's 110. Back to PowerPoint. Now there's not a lot of information given to us about the rest of it, except that we have an angle here of 30 degrees between that line we just drew and this line here. So it doesn't give us the length of that line, but it does tell us from the very bottom of the tow bar to the very top edge of the tow bar is 56. So I'm going to put a line in that represents 30 degrees, and then I'm going to put a line in parallel to this one. You can see the edge there and that edge there are parallel, 56 millimeters away. So two things to do in Creo. So using line tool, from this edge click once, move it away around about 30 degrees I should say, click again, finish that by center mouse clicking. While you're still in that mode, if you do click on select, you'll notice that a dimension tool comes up. If you grab that, if I can do that, grab that, you can pull that sometimes to the other side, but it's not being very nice to me. So what I might need to do is just go to dimension, select that edge, select this edge, center mouse click, and it gives us our 30 degrees, or it could have done 150 over there obviously. So type in 30 degrees, enter. We now have a line running off at 30, but we don't know how long that is. Back to PowerPoint, we can see here that we do know the distance between this edge and this edge is 56. So it's not where that line there finishes, by the way, but let's put that information in, that's 56. So back to Creo. Line tool, somewhere up here in space, I don't know yet exactly where it is, but I'm going to draw myself a line, hopefully long enough. Oh, that's very long. Oops, make sure it hasn't snapped or anything. I need to zoom in a bit on that. About there. Finish it off, and let's make sure the distance between the bottom edge and this top edge is 56. Now if it doesn't default to it, looks like we have got an 86 measurement there, so I'm just going to pull that out there so I can see what's going on. Change it to 56, hit enter. Now the important thing to realize here is that edge does not intersect this edge here. Have a look back at PowerPoint. That edge we just drew does not intersect this 30 degrees there. So how do we get this internal corner here, which will then reveal the distance of 85 from there to the end? Well, if we look down to the far right hand side, we notice that the thickness of the tow bar, the plate that's made from, is 16. So we can assume that 16 constant thickness all the way through. So if I was to draw another line parallel to this one that I just drew, 16 millimeters below it, where that line intersects our 30-degree line must be that corner. So back to Creo, line tool, click once, extend it past, make sure the parallel line symbol appeared, let's finish it off, and make the distance between those two a distance of 16. Hit enter. Okay, now let's have a look. 110, 30 degrees, hitting that edge there. Let's have a look. 110, 30 degrees, now it's hitting that edge there. So we've now established that corner there. From that corner there to the very end is a distance of 85. So while we're there, let's put a line in from there to somewhere down here, a vertical line. So just draw a line in space, a distance of 85. Now if it doesn't come up straight away from there to there, what we might need to do now is use your delete segment tool and get rid of the bits of the line that we don't want. Then use your normal tool, your dimension tool, click on the point only. You can see the point highlights as I go close to it. Click onto that line, center mouse click, and the distance I think was 85. Let me just double check that. Back to PowerPoint. A distance, yes, of 85 from that corner to the very end. Okay, so we can see we've got the 30-degree line up here across, so we don't need this stuff out here, so let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. And that's starting to clear up nicely. Okay, so to finish off that profile, we take that same knowledge that we had before, that this bar remains 16 millimeters thick all the way through. So probably the easiest way is just to use your line tool and draw a line up there, 16, or we might try using actually an offset tool just to introduce it. If there's a line that I want to offset another one off, I select that line first, click up here to the offset tool. You see the arrows pointing down, wrong direction, so that means we need to type a negative in front, and the thickness was 16, hit enter. And you can see it's offset that line up there, distance of 16. Close that. Now I could try using it here as well, but chances are it won't work because it's going to end up a bit short. So rather than muck around with the offset tool there, I'm going to just draw a line, not snapping it to anything, just free out here. Draw it across, and then as you can see, well, that was lucky. Actually, that's rather freaky that actually did that. The two parallel line symbols appear. In actual fact, that's not going to quite work for me because I still want those parallel line symbols to appear. So what I might do there, I might just come over here, and now you can see my parallel line symbols appear. Finish that off. Put the dimension in between the two of them, 16 millimeters was our correct dimension, and then we're right. Now you'll notice that I'm always starting my line and finishing my line somewhere in space where it's not locking on a constraint to somewhere. If you find yourself joining lines, then other dimensions will change. So it's a good practice to always start the line and finish the line not attached to anything when you're sort of in this construction phase. Alright, so delete, let's get rid of this stuff. 1, 2, a bit more there, where we've got an extra line there. Select tool, oh look at that, shaded in, and 110 by 16 by 16. That's got to be 16 because we used the offset tool, and now we're ready to extrude, I do believe. So select that. I always do that. If you are spinning things around that disappear, just click on this icon down here, which changes it to the center orbit when you use the center mouse button. And let's extrude this thing, and let's do something a little bit forward thinking here. Rather than just extruding in one direction, we're going to use that plane to draw something with later on, I think. So hit the extrude button, but this time select symmetrical about the work plane, so in either side, either way, and it's a distance of 75. So back to there, 75 it is. Hit enter. and happy days. Good. And then we've got 3 holes and a round on the front. So you can do those holes positions, that's easy. 1, 2 and 3, you know, so they're 2 different sizes. It's only really this round of 75 here on the front that may cause you some new challenges. So a round of 75 on the front can't be applied to these corners. I'll show you what happens. If I click onto this one and I hold control and I click this one, go to the round tool and we type in 75 and enter, we can see that it applies the round from the center or the origin of that point, which doesn't work. So we can't use the round tool, so we have to draw some geometry that's going to represent an arc that originates along this center line and finishes tangential to the end of the actual plate here. So to do that, go to Creo, put a sketch up onto this top surface here, sketch onto there, and let's start off by, we need an arc which is going to be of a radius 75, diameter 150. So I'm going to place my circle center somewhere over here, around about where I think it should go. And I'm going to not snap this to anything at this point in time. I'm just going to draw a circle about that big. Use your select tool and make that circle a radius of 75, which is a diameter of 150. Remember that Creo always works in diameter. Now we need the edge of this circle to be tangent to this edge here. So to do that, I'm going to use some references. So come into the top left corner, click on reference, and looks like we've got a reference to the middle as well, which is good, after that lateral plane. So first of all, I'm going to use my tangent tool. So if I come up here to my constraints, there's our tangent tool. Click on tangent, click on the edge, and then click on the edge of the circle we wish to become tangent with. You'll see it moves the edge of the circle to become tangent to that. The only other problem though is that we don't have the center of the circle in the center line there. So to fix that, we use what we call the coincident constraint, and we click on the center of the circle and then we click on the center line like so, and it now fixes or moves that so they're coincident. We now have a circle which will give us this arc here and this arc here, but we don't want to remove internally, we want to remove this external part here. So to finish that off, just simply go line and draw yourself a sort of random shape like so. Delete the parts that we don't need and select, yes, it's all lovely shaped. Click OK, and then of course extrude and cut. And that's interesting, something weird going on there. Let's see what happens there. Okay, something strange went on there. Let's see what happened there. Let's go back to my I'll just delete that extrusion and I'll go back to my sketch, edit definition, checking that again, click on, no, there's no overlapping geometry, there's no exposed, there's none of those. Okay, the only thing I can think of here is that this arc here, because it's tangent with that edge of that surface, it's really not, the maths processor is not enjoying that there. I'm going to give it one more go. I've got a funny feeling it just doesn't like it because that's tangential to that face there. It sort of doesn't know whether to cut it or not. So let's try that again. Where were we? Extrude. And let's cut. It doesn't look very nice. Oh, there we go. It worked that time. Who knows why, but it did. Okay, cool. And then you can put those holes onto that surface. Oh, I might as well do that as well. There, I'll show you a different way of putting holes in rather than drawing circles. If we select the surface, and normally you'd go sketch and draw some circles, you can use a tool called the hole tool, which is up here. Click on hole. I'll spin it around a little bit. And to position the holes, all you do is grab these green handles and move them to a plane or an edge or a face that gives you a reference. So I'm going to click one to there, one to there. And the distance would have been half of 75, so this is kind of cool. We can do the old 75/2, and the diameter of the hole I think were 16. Sounds familiar. Enter, and the distance in from the end, we'll better check that out. I forget what that is. Okay, looks like we've got 25 from the end and another 50. There were 16 and half of 75, so 25 and 50, remember that. So this distance here from the end needs to be 25. And we don't really worry about the rest of it. We can see up here that it's just a simple hole. Create a simple hole, diameter of 16, through it goes. Click OK. And you can then put another one here. Do the same thing. Hole. Snap it to there, snap it to the end would be a good idea. That would be 75. That will be, once again, we can do the 75/2, and happy days. Good. And then of course you can put the hole at the end there to finish that off at your own leisure. Okay, so get stuck into that. Couple little tricky parts there.